Hey, my stars. Welcome back to another episode of Vitamin A Star's Affirmations. Remember, when we take our vitamin A, it helps to clear our minds, our hearts, our bodies, and our souls. And when all of those things are in alignment, then we can go out and shine bright and live our best life. Please don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification, and like and also share so that we can all empower each other. Today's vitamin A, we're going to focus on grief. So I have a question. To grieve or not to grieve? That is our question. When we think about grief, I don't know about you, but I often thought about grief being the loss of something, the loss of someone, meaning in death, which that is true. You can experience grief. You could be grieving because you've lost a loved one. And for those of you who have animals, you could be grieving if you lost them in death. Then there is grief in a non-death situation. It could be the loss of a career that you've had over some years. It could be a loss of a marriage, divorce. It could be anything that is causing you to experience any type of mental pain or any type of heartache. And then there is ambiguous grief. So I found out that I have ambiguous grief. So I'm going to tell you about ambiguous grief. Ambiguous grief is when the person who you love so very deeply, they are still here physically, but sometimes they are not able to function psychologically. That could be an addiction, that they're into some form of addiction, and it is causing them not to be the person who you once knew. It could be a brain injury. It could be a mental illness, and it could be Alzheimer's. It could be dementia. Well, for me, the ambiguous grief that I am going through, that I am experiencing, it is with my mother. I am just going to be transparent and tell you all that my mother was my best friend. She is my best friend. She's still living. I could tell my mom anything. My mom would help me with anything, and she would help anybody. But right now, my mom has been diagnosed as having dementia. And so it oftentimes makes me sad when I think about how my little girl is 8 and how we could be together, the three of us going shopping, going to the movies, hanging out, doing different things. That causes me great grief because the state that she's in right now, she's not able to do those things. She's in a state as to where she's depending on me and my dad and my brother to do everything for her. So that is ambiguous grief. I am still yearning for that person who was happy, smiling, loved to travel, loved to laugh. That's who I am yearning for, or I am going through the grieving process. And that's called ambiguous grief. Maybe that's something that you are going through. I don't know your situation, but maybe it's one of your loved ones that have dementia, or maybe it's a loved one that's addicted to something that's causing them to be someone who you don't recognize, or maybe that's someone who you love that has mental illness. All of that is considered ambiguous grief. That's where the person is physically here, but psychologically, they are going through some things during that time. And I say during that time or at this time because God is a healer and He can heal anything. He can heal all manner of diseases. So you can keep praying and don't stop praying for your loved one who you're having that ambiguous grief for, whether it's an addiction, whether it's dementia, whether it's a mental illness, anything that is causing them to be unbalanced and not to be the person who we know they could be. You continue to pray for them and you continue to pray for God to heal them. There are 5 things that we're going to keep as tips for us, for those of you who are going through the ambiguous grief. The first thing is acknowledge the emotion. Put a name to it, whatever it is. If it's your mom, if it's your spouse, if it's your children, if it's your siblings, if it's a good friend of yours, acknowledge the emotion, whatever the emotion is. So if it's grief, acknowledge it. Put a name to it. That's the first step. The second step is be kind to yourself. Meditate on it. Pray about it. Don't harp on yourself or put yourself down like, oh, if I would do this, or if I should do this, or if I coulda, woulda, shoulda. But be kind to yourself. Pray about it. And remind yourself of the third thing is remind yourself of things that you are grateful for regarding that person. Start speaking that life into your situation. Remind yourself of, oh, how grateful you are that that person is still alive. And as in my case, I can still go to my mom's house. I can still put her in the car and we can take a drive. Or when I'm helping her get dressed or do things, I can sing some of her favorite church songs. And believe it or not, when I say the name Jesus, that triggers something, and then she's able to articulate Jesus, and we celebrate those successes. Number 4, have positive thoughts. Speak life. Speak life into that situation. Speak life over your grief. Don't let any triggers or anything torment you to where you're just in a doom and gloom situation. And number 5, talk to someone. Talk to someone you trust. Also, there's nothing wrong with going to see a counselor. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So write it out. Even if you don't talk verbally, you can communicate through paper and you can write down things that are bothering you regarding whether it be a loss in death or whether it's the ambiguous grief where you're yearning for that person to be their old selves, or you're yearning for that situation to be like how it used to be. So I want you all to know it's okay to grieve. Even if you have lost a loved one, if your way of remembering that person and making it through your state of grieving, if you need to go to the site to where that person has been buried, don't let anybody tell you any differently, like that's something you shouldn't be doing. That's the way you are going to cope with it. If it is for you to celebrate that person on their birthday, that would have been their earthly birthday, if it's for you to do that by wishing them a happy birthday or talking to your loved ones and remembering that person, it's okay. Don't let anyone tell you how you should grieve. We're all different. And you shouldn't feel bad because you don't grieve like someone else. But I tell you this, the medical experts will tell us that we do need to go ahead and grieve and get those different emotions out of us, and also find ways to get through the grieving process so that we're not letting it weigh us down. So I just stopped by today. Hopefully that encouraged someone because it has encouraged me. Remember, I tell you, the vitamin A's are for me first, and so it did help me to be able to put a name with what I was going through. I know I was feeling something, but I didn't know what it was called. So now I know that it's called ambiguous grief. But what I'm doing, I'm just making sure that I'm there for mom and helping her in any type of way that I can. And when I'm there, I am praying for her and praying with her and asking God to please restore her mind and her memory and to allow her to speak again. But she has never lost her smile. So that helps me, because when she sees us, she's always smiling. So I want you all to remember that if you need to grieve, go ahead and grieve in the way that is best for you. Do not let anyone tell you how you should be grieving. Remember, we do what is best for us. We shine bright like stars so that we can go off and live our best life. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so that we can empower others. I will talk to you all soon. You all be safe and take care.